रसूलिहिल करीम अम्मा बाद फ़अऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश्शैतानिर्रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम रब्बि इश्रह ली सदरी वयस्सिर ली अमरी वहलुल उक़दतम मिन लिसानी यफ़क़हू क़ौली रब्बि ज़िदनी इल्मा. Assalamu alaikum, dear sisters. So today we will carry on from where we left off last week. Last week we spoke about the will and we went into depth about the will, and then the next ayah, it continues. The next ayah being 181, it continues to say that whoever changes the bequest after hearing it, the sin shall be upon those who make the change. Truly Allah is all hearer, all knower. So if you remember, we spoke about the will, that everybody who gets a share in your property is already mentioned in the Quran, but there is a 1/3 that you can do what you like with. You can give it to whoever you like. So if someone tampers with that 1/3, then the sin is on them. So you've already written your will out, you've already said this is who gets what, then they've decided to change it, then the sin is on them, the sin is not on you. But he who fears from a testator some unjust act or wrongdoing, and thereupon he makes peace between the parties concerned, there shall be no sin on him. Certainly Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful. So then the surah goes on to speak about fasting. So fasting, the As-Sawm, it's only mentioned in these couple of ayahs. So it's only mentioned in Surah Baqarah, and the next 5 ayahs are the only ones that talk about fasting. If you've missed today's lesson, or if you miss the lesson in Surah Baqarah while these ayahs are being discussed, the fasting is being discussed, that means that you have actually missed the, to you, oh yeah, the fasting wasn't mentioned in the Quran, because you've missed that lesson. So the fasting is only mentioned in a couple of ayahs in Surah Baqarah. So let's move on to the ayahs of fasting. O you who believe, observing a Sawm, which is the fasting, is prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you, that you may become pious, that you may become muttaqun, so that you may be protected. When you are pious, when you are muttaqun, you are protected and you are safeguarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And remember, fasting is an act of worship. It is an obligation which, in the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it is an obligation that will suffice a person from the hellfire. So it is enough. This fasting is a shield for a person from the hellfire. It is a very unique act of worship. It's like no act of worship is like fasting, because you can be fasting and nobody knows anything better. Nobody knows whether you are fasting or not. You can't, it's not written on your face. You're not stood on one leg. You're not stood on a prayer mat for praying. You're not sort of like siding people off or anything. You are worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way that that is very unique. So it is a private act of worship between the person and between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So nobody knows that you are fasting. You know that you are fasting. People may have, in the same household, may have got up at the same time as you. People may, you're all Muslims, so we're all expecting each other to fast. But the only person that knows they're fasting is yourself and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is a unique act of worship. And it is a junnah meaning a shield. So when a person fasts with faith and expectations of reward, all their past sins are forgiven. And it being a junnah is a shield from the hellfire. And it is a deed which is private between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the person. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, it is for me and I will reward it. So no one, we can't expect any reward from anybody else. In all acts of worship, our reward is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But other acts of worship, there is a mention of, you get this, you get the other. But the fast, there is no end to the amount of reward that you will receive. So it is from Allah, and with Allah's bounties, with Allah's grace, with the fadl of Allah, you just do not know what you will get. And it will be a huge, a very beautiful thing that you will receive from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It will be something that you are not expecting, and it will beautify your entire dunya and your entire hereafter. And we learn in this ayah that fasting produces taqwa. So a person who has taqwa, then all their affairs become easy for them. And this is why we should fast happily. And I know a lot of people, I'm probably included in this as well, we whinge when it's a time of, when Ramadan draws closer. And fasting is a sort of like a difficult form of worship. And we do it sort of like, but sometimes we're sort of like begrudgingly thinking, oh, how longer have we got to go? But do it happily, be happy about it, and do it for Allah's sake, and do it so you knowing that you are going to be rewarded. And you are going to be rewarded in a way that you can't even begin to think. So the entire month of fasting has been prescribed. It's been prescribed so we can develop the taqwa, we can develop the ability to leave the sin, we can develop the ability to avoid sin. Just as we leave our favorite food, our favorite drink while we are fasting, we should leave the sins as well. And certain deeds that Allah does not approve of, we should leave those as well. Deeds that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like, so we should try and leave those. We're quite happy to leave our food and drink. Our food and drink are halal. We are allowed to have food and drink. But while we are fasting, we do not have food and drink. So if we can leave what is halal, then why are we not leaving what is disliked, what is haram, what is a sin? So we must try and leave the deeds that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not approve of. And taqwa, it means that a person does good, and taqwa also includes leaving sin. Because we look at one side, we're doing good, but we don't look at the other side where we must leave the sin, we must avoid the sin, we must keep away from the sin. So there's got to be this trying to do good and trying to avoid the bad as well. And in an address to the believers of this ummah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered them to fast, and that is to abstain from food and drink and sexual activity, with the intention of doing so sincerely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that He has ordained fasting for Muslims just as He ordained it for those before them. So they being an example for them in that. So the people that were before us, they were also prescribed fasting. So we should vigorously perform this obligation more obediently than the people before us. So the nations before us. The next ayah, 184, observing fast is for a fixed number of days, but if any of you is ill or on a journey, the same number should be made up from other days. And as for those who can fast with difficulty meaning if you're old or if you were ill or and you find it difficult to fast, and for those who can fast with difficulty, they have a choice either to fast or to feed a miskin for every day. But whoever does good of his own accord, it is better for him that you fast. It is better for you if only you know. So meaning that if you have missed a fast because it was difficult in the sense that you were ill or you were in some shape or form unwell, then make them up later on. So missed fast have to be made up later on in the year. And those who are able to fast but with great hardship, and this is sort of like maybe someone who is very old, meaning that he's never going to become young again, and of course, you know, the elderly find it difficult to fast, or the person has a terminal illness. If you have a terminal illness, you're not going to become better, and therefore you will never be able to make up these fasts. In such a case, in this case, they should give fidya, they should give ransom, they should give just to substitute their fasts, they should give the fidya. And what is the fidya? The fidya is feeding a poor person for each day of the fast that you have missed. So missing one fast, so you've missed one fast, you have to feed one poor person one meal, and whoever volunteers access, so for example they give 2 meals to feed or feeds more people, it is better for them. Provide, and when we say we have to feed one person, 2 meals a day. So there is one person, you either feed one person 2 meals a day, or you feed 2 people 1 meal a day, because we all have to, generally speaking, we would have 2 meals a day. So if you're going to have 2 meals a day, then obviously the next person should be having 2 meals a day as well. So you have to pay for either one person to have 2 meals a day, or 2 people to have one meal per day. And if you can do more, then do more. That is better for you. That will bring you a great deal of reward. So, for example, they give 2 meals or feed more people, it is better for them. And provide one person with 2 meals, or 2 people with 1 meal. And there is no limit to the good that you can do. But fasting is better for you if you knew. So at least we should try to fast. But then sometimes our illnesses become so severe, like what we've just mentioned, the terminal illness, perhaps towards the end of life, or old age towards the end of life. When that time comes, then there's no, it is better not to fast. It is better to give the fidya than to struggle with the fasting and cause more harm to yourself. If your fasting is going to be harmful to you, then it's better not to fast. Ayah number 185. The month of Ramadan, in which was revealed the Quran, a guidance for mankind and clear proofs for the guidance and the criterion between right and wrong. So whoever of you sights the crescent on the first night of the month, of that month, and whoever is ill or on a journey, the same number of fasts should be made up from other days. So whoever, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intends for you ease, and He does not want to make things difficult for you. He wants that you must complete the same number of days, and that you must magnify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, say Allahu Akbar, on seeing the crescent of the month, for having guided you so that you may be grateful. So the Quran was revealed in the month of Ramadan. In fact, all divine scriptures were revealed in the month of Ramadan. So Ramadan is important because of the Quran as well. So Ramadan has a huge importance, and part of the importance is the fact that the Quran was revealed in Ramadan. And all previous books, all previous scriptures were revealed in the month of Ramadan. So the Quran itself, it is a blessing, it is a mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the mercy that it brings, because of which the entire month was chosen for fasting. And the night in which it was revealed was made Laylatul Qadr. So the night that the Quran was actually revealed in its entirety was the night of Laylatul Qadr. And Laylatul Qadr is one of the last 10 nights of Ramadan, one of the last odd 10 nights of Ramadan. So when you are not able to fast in Ramadan because of a temporary condition, then make the fast up later. This is the ease that Allah speaks about. This is the ease that is mentioned. This is the ease in the ayahs, that if you cannot fast, make it up later. Alhamdulillah. Look at the ease that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is providing for us. And this is because He wants you to complete the period of the whole month. So make sure you complete the number of fasts, and to glorify Allah to that which He has guided you. So we must glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah has guided us to the truth. Allah has guided us to the Quran. So another objective of fasting besides taqwa is shukr. So, and in the month of Ramadan, one should pay special attention to making dua, and dua with sabr and shukr. And when we do dua, we should always be thankful that Allah has given us the opportunity to make dua, and we should be making shukr for all the things that Allah has given us in the past. And of course, we should ask for other things as well. We should ask for extra things. But we often forget in our asking. We think that we are asking. We ask for loads of things, but we forget to be grateful for the loads of things that we already have, for all the things that we have been asking for in the past that have actually materialized. Allah has actually given us those things. and to us it's part of life now. We have forgotten to be grateful. So do shukr for those things as well. So make lots of dua and have shukr during the month of Ramadan. Shukr for all the things that have actually already materialized. And when my slaves ask you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, concerning me, then answer them, I am indeed near to them by my knowledge. I respond to the invocation of the supplicant when he calls me, without any mediator or intercessor. So let them obey me and believe in me, so that they may be led aright. And that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is near. He is saying, tell them that I am near. I respond to the invocation of the supplicant when he calls me. So the meaning here is whoever calls upon Allah in the morning, in the night, in the evening, at home, from work, on the way to school, on the way shopping, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, when you call upon Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will respond. So this is the ayah is very, very simple, very, very straightforward, easy to understand. That when my servants ask about me, and we do, sometimes we think, well, where is Allah? Look at me, I'm in such a distressed state. Allah is near. Know that He is watching you. You know that He is hearing you. Know that whatever you ask for, He will give you. So make dua, make supplication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then in the same ayah it says, so let them respond to me, because remember, a relationship is always two-way. Now you want to be heard by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but then you better hear and you better listen to Allah as well. So what has Allah asked us to do? Allah has asked us to believe in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah has asked us to pray 5 times a day. Allah has asked us to fast for the whole month of Ramadan. Allah has asked us to give charity. Allah has asked us to perform Hajj. So if we're listening to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doing what Allah has asked us to do, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will respond to us as well. If we are not responding, then how do we expect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to respond? But Allah still, in His mercy, He still responds to us. So do not take anyone for granted. And we take Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for granted. We think, oh, Allah's going to forgive us. Oh, if I don't pray, Allah will still be merciful. Allah will forgive us. If I don't do this, Allah will. We're just takers. Don't be a taker. Also be a giver. And remember that sins actually become a barrier between the servant and his Lord. And the sin is not just, we think that not praying is just not praying, not realizing that that is a sin. It is a sin not to pray. It is a sin not to fast when you can. If you fall in the category of people that should fast. It is a sin not to obey Allah in the things that He has asked us to obey. He has, mentioned things in the Quran. Do this, do this, do this. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. We seem to think that the sin is to do what He's told us not to do. But the sin is also not to do what He has told us to do. So He has told us to pray, we do not pray. He has told us to fast, we do not fast. And yet we think it is not a sin. It is a sin. So always remember that the sins, that your sins, you're not doing what you have been asked to do, you have been requested to do, you have been taught, then not doing that will be a barrier between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we want our du'as to be accepted, then we should also respond to Allah. We should do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has requested from us. We should accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands. And then it goes on to say, and they should believe in me, and they should have hope, they should pray with determination, that they may be rightly guided. So the fact is that we need to make dua for our own benefit, because we think we make dua and it's always for worldly things. But the dua is for our own benefit. We need the guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we do make dua, then one of the things we need to make dua for is guidance. So keep making dua that you may be guided by Allah throughout your life, no matter what you are going through. Sometimes we're going through easy stuff, And we think that's fine. And sometimes we're going through difficult stuff, and that's when we have these intents to make dua. And what we make dua for is, oh, we just want to be out of this situation. And that's not the only thing that we should be making dua for. We should be making dua for, yes, of course, we want this situation that we're not happy with. It's not bringing us benefit. It's not pleasing us. We want this situation to be over. But everything we have learnt in this situation, everything Allah wanted us to learn in this situation, oh Allah, let us, hold on to that. Let us benefit from that. So everything that we have gone through, let it be a lesson for us. And of course, make dua for your situations to change. And Ramadan is one of the best times to make dua, especially for those who are fasting, because the Prophet ﷺ said that there are 3 people whose duas are not rejected. And one of them is the person who is fasting until he breaks his fast. So as long as you are fasting, then make dua. Not to say it's only during Ramadan. If you are fasting, you make dua. If you are fasting Mondays, Thursdays, the light day, 14, 15, 16th, or the every other day when you are fasting, any time you are fasting, make dua. This applies to you, not just during the month of Ramadan. So, of course, the month of Ramadan, we have 30 fasts together, and this is when we should make the most of it. But any other time that we are fasting, then then make lots of dua then as well. Then we have some more rules about fasting given. It is made lawful for you to have sexual relations with your wives in the night of As-Sawm, in the night of Ramadan. They are libas for you, and you are the same for them. Allah knows that you used to deceive yourselves, so He turned to you, accepted your repentance, and forgave you. So now have sexual relations with them and seek that which Allah has ordained for you. Meaning seek offsprings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained for you. Eat and drink until the white thread of dawn appears to you distinct from the black thread. Then complete your sawm till nightfall, and do not have sexual relations with them as in your wives, while you are in itikaf at the masjid. These are the limits set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So approach them not. Thus does Allah make clear His signs to mankind that they may become muttaqun. So something like sexual relations is even mentioned in for the month of Ramadan. So sexual relations during the fast, it is not permissible. You are not, while you are fasting, you are not allowed to be indulging in that. It is not permissible, but during the night it is. And it says that they are a clothing for you and you are a clothing for them, and a person is in need of their clothing. And the clothes, they beautify a person, they cover a person, they protect a person. So take care of these clothes, take care of these garments that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given. Value them, value this relationship, and give it the attention that it deserves. And Allah knows that you used to deceive yourselves, meaning that you were having these relations at night while initially you were unsure of the permissibility, because the Sahabas at the time, the Sahaba at the time were obviously indulging in this activity, but they weren't sure whether they should or they shouldn't. So they were like, is it permissible or is it not permissible? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, however, He has accepted your repentance and forgave you. So now have relations with them and seek that which Allah has decreed, meaning enjoy that, enjoy, and Allah has made permissible for you, and seek it without guilt. So don't feel guilty about it like they used to. And eat and drink, of course, in the night, until the white thread of dawn becomes distinct to you from the black thread of the night, meaning until the time that the fast begins, because the fast begins at Subh Sadiq. It doesn't begin at Fajr. So when the Fajr begins, then you must you must close your fast, as we say. You must finish eating. Then complete the fast until sunset. So from Fajr to sunset, you must be fasting. you mustn't be eating at Fajr. So Fajr is after Subh Sadiq. So Fajr is the time of prayer. So once the azan of Fajr is given, then you must stop eating. And do not have relations with them as long as you are staying for worship in the masjid, meaning while you are in itikaf. And this is not allowed. So when you are in itikaf, then no relations marital relations are allowed. So in short, a wife and the husband are intimate and have sexual intercourse with each other, and that is why they were permitted to have activity during the nights of Ramadan. So the matter is made easy for them. So to expect people to stay away from each other for the whole month, that would not have made life that easy for them. So they were unsure at the beginning, but this ayah came and it said you can during the night, but not while you are fasting. Abu Ishaq reported that Al-Bara bin Azib said, when the companions of Allah's Messenger observed fast, but would sleep before breaking their fast, they would continue fasting until the following night. Qais bin Sarma al-Ansari was fasting one day and was working in his land. When the time to break the fast came, he went to his wife and said, "Do you have food?" She said, "No, but I could try and get you some." His eyes were then overcome by sleep, and when his wife came back, she found him asleep. She said, "Woe unto you! Did you sleep in the middle of the next? Did you sleep?" Then, in the middle of the next day, he lost consciousness, and they mentioned what had happened to the Prophet ﷺ. So in Bukhari, it is reported that this hadith, the same hadith by Ishaq. So when the fasting of Ramadan was ordained, people would refrain from obviously indulging with their partners, and also they would only eat between Maghrib and Isha, or between Maghrib and before they went to sleep, because once they went to sleep, then there would be no more eating. And then later on, it was said that you can eat throughout the night. You can eat until the time of Fajr, the time of Subh Sadiq. So Ali bin Abu Talha narrated that Ibn Abbas said, during the month of Ramadan, after Muslims would pray Isha, they would not touch their women and food until the next night. Then some Muslims, including Umar bin al-Khattab, touched their wives and had some food during Ramadan after Isha. They complained to the Prophet ﷺ. And then Allah SWT sent down, "Allah knows that you used to deceive yourself, so he turned to you, accepted your repentance, forgave you. So now you are allowed to do these things, that you are allowed to eat throughout the night until the white thread of dawn appears. And you are also allowed to find your comfort in your partners as well." So the distinction between the fasting of the Muslims and the fasting of the others is, Imam Ahmed reported that Abu Salih narrated that Allah's Messenger said, "Sahur is a blessed meal, hence do not abandon it, even if one just takes a sip of water. Indeed, Allah and His angels send blessings upon those who eat sahur." So sahur is what makes our fast different to the fast of other people. And there are several other hadiths that encourage taking the sahur, even if it is just a sip of water, even if it is one date, then whatever, it's something tiny. You still have that. Make time to get up and have that, and that will be your blessing. That will be your sahur. And do not have relations while you are in itikaf, because when you are in itikaf, men would be in a masjid, because for a man, itikaf is actually at the mosque. So during that time that you are at the mosque, then that is not permissible for you. Ali ibn Abu Talha reported that Ibn Abbas said, this ayah is about the man who stays in itikaf at the mosque during Ramadan or other months. Allah prohibited him from touching women during the night or day until he finishes his itikaf. Ad-Dahak says, formerly the men who practice itikaf would go out of the masjid, and if he wished, he would have relations with his wife. Allah then said, do not have relations with them while you are in itikaf at the masjid. Meaning, do not touch your wives as long as you are in itikaf, whether you are in masjid or whether you are outside. So let's just go through a couple of the points, a couple of the main points with regards to fasting. So fasting is obligatory for a person if he fulfills 5 conditions. The first condition is that he's a Muslim. So he must be a Muslim. Anyone else, because sometimes we have people who we work with them in an office and they think, oh yeah, you're going to fast, you're Muslim, we'll all fast with you. Their fast isn't actually a fast. They're just doing it as a, an experiment or whatever it is. You must be a Muslim in order to fast. Second condition is that you're accountable, mukallaf. He should be accountable. So he would have, if you're accountable, you would have reached the age of puberty, and you would be sound of mind, and so that would make you accountable. The fact that you are sane and the fact that you have reached puberty. Then the one who is of sound of mind is the opposite to the one who is insane. So if the one who is insane, or one who has lost their mind, or one who is feeble-minded, in whatever sense, they are not accountable, and therefore they are not obliged to fast. But there are any of the duties of Islam are, they're not obligated on them. Whether it's prayer, whether it's fasting, whether it's feeding the poor, whatever the duties of Islam are, if they are not sound of mind, sound-minded, they have any form of feebleness, then they would not be accounted, and therefore they do not have to fast. The next condition is that he is able to fast. So the one who is unable to fast does not have to fast, as we learned just earlier, that whoever is ill or on a journey, the same number of days must be made up of other days. So being unable to fast falls into 2 categories. It falls into the temporary inability to fast and the permanent inability to fast. The temporary inability is that it's mentioned in the above, i.e. if one is sick, but of course they hope to recover, and the traveller. So these 2 are allowed not to fast, but then they make up what they missed. And the ladies that are on their periods would come under the same category, that it is temporarily they're unable to fast. So for that week they are allowed to miss the fast and then make up for it later. Then there's people who are permanently unable to fast, and these people are, they're sick, they're ill, they're terminally ill, they do not have any hope of recovery, so therefore they do not need to fast. They may be very old, and of course, they're not miraculously going to turn around and become young and healthy again, so they do not have to fast. So they that's the 2 categories, the temporary inability and the permanent inability. Then in order to fast, then you must be settled, so you are not a traveller, because if you're a traveller, then it's not an obligation on you to fast. And then there are no impediments to fasting, meaning this generally applies to women who are either menstruating or they are bleeding following childbirth, so they do not need to fast. So if any of those 5 conditions apply to you, then you do not need to fast. Sorry, I think I might have said that that might have sounded not quite right. What we've gone through is that you fast if you're clear of these conditions. So you're clear of your periods, you're not old, you're not on a journey, you do not fast. But to fast, you have to be Muslim, sane, over the age of puberty, and able to fast. And then virtues of Ramadan, so we'll go through a couple of those as well, that Allah has made fasting the 4th pillar of Islam. The Quran was revealed in this month, and we know the Quran has a huge sort of like importance in our life, a huge importance in our religion. It actually gives us all the do's and don'ts. It gives us, it's our book to live by. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this book in this month. So this month is so special because of this month as well. And this month has a day called Laylatul Qadr, and this is towards the end of Ramadan, in the last 10 nights, the last odd 10 nights of Ramadan. And Laylatul Qadr, of course, is a month that is a night that is better than 1,000 months. So to be worshipping on that day, you will get the reward that you would get if you had done that particular act for 1,000 months. Imagine the reward that you would reap for all that. And 1,000 months is like 83 years and some months, and a lot of us wouldn't even live that long. And if we did live that long, then we have to take out our years that we were under the age of puberty, because we weren't able to, the time that we were probably unwell, the time that old age is kicked in. So even if we lived that long, we would probably only have about 30 to 50 years to play with. But this gives you a straight 83 years. And for those of us that hit Laylatul Qadr every year, then imagine how much reward that would be. So we should try and aim for that every single year. In this month, Allah opens the gates of paradise and closes the gates of hell. So when the month begins, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens the gates of paradise and closes the gates of hell. And every night, Allah has people whom He redeems from the fire. So it's not just, like the middle 10 nights or the last 10 nights. Every single night of Ramadan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala frees people from the fire of hell. So there may be people that were destined to be going to hell, or to experience the fire of hell, but they, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, due to His mercy, for some act or whatever that person has committed, Allah will take the fire away from that person. So Allah will free that person from the fire of hell. And it's a means of expiation for the sins committed since the previous Ramadan. So from one Ramadan to the next Ramadan, your sins are all forgiven from one Ramadan to the next. It is a sunnah. So if someone thinks, in the sunnah it is that if you are fasting and someone tries to mistreat you, or someone tries to argue with you, then you just turn around and you just say, I am fasting. You do not go and retaliate, and you do not go and start doing whatever they are doing to you. It is a sunnah for the fasting person to eat sahur, because there is blessing in it, there is barakah in it. And it is sunnah for the person to hasten to break the fast. So as soon as Maghrib kicks in, as soon as the Azan begins, we should break our fast. We shouldn't think, oh well, I don't want to break my fast yet, just in case it's not quite Maghrib. I'm going to make sure I'm going to, play it safe, and I'll break my fast perhaps 10 minutes later. This is not how it is. We should break our fast as soon as we hear the Adhan of Maghrib. It is sunnah to break your fast with fresh dates. If you cannot find fresh dates, then dry dates is fine. And if you cannot find any dates, fresh or dry, then break it with water. And there are two du'as of breaking your fasts that are mentioned in here. The first one is Dhahaba al-Zama wa batalat al-Uraq wa thabata al-Ajr, meaning thirst is quenched, the veins are moist, and the reward is certain with Allah, inshallah. And this is it is narrated in Abu Dawood, and it's in Al-Daraqutni, and Ibn Hajar said in Al-Taklis al-Daraktani, and it is said that it is a Sahih Isnad. Now, there's another one that we are all very familiar with, and we have all been saying this. This one, I think it's the majority of us people from the Indian subcontinent. We say the next one, which is Allahumma lakal samtu, and lakal samtu wa ala rizqa aftartu. Oh Allah, for you I have fasted, and by your provision I have broken my fast. This is narrated in Abu Dawood, and it is said that it is a daif. Daif means weak hadith. Al-Abani classed it as daif. So that's the two du'as that we are all sort of like familiar with. The first one, we weren't too familiar with it until quite recently. The second one, I think we've all been saying the second one since we remember, but the second one is a daif, a weak hadith. So it is mustahab for a fasting person to offer a great deal of supplication, a great deal of dua, because Prophet ﷺ said that there are three whose supplication will not be rejected, and one of them is the person who is fasting. And during Ramadan, you have the opportunity to perform ittikaf. So the ittikaf is a sunnah. The Prophet ﷺ performed ittikaf, and it is greatly rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we should try and perform ittikaf at least once in our lifetime. And ittikaf is the practice of secluding oneself during the final 10 days of Ramadan in a masjid for the men folk, but for the women at home, with the intention of solely dedicating your time to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So during the days spent in ittikaf, a person remains solely focused on the worship of Allah. They leave their worldly concerns behind. So this environment free of distraction provides the opportunity to strengthen one's relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way that one would, in a way that you would not normally be able to do so. So normally we have this to do, we have the other, we have to get up, we have to answer the door, we have to cook, we have to clean. But when you are in itikaf, you are focused on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, no one else. And that is your only focus, that is your main focus. And of course, it is difficult when you've got a big family, when you've got small children, but life doesn't remain like that forever. You will have a time when you are perhaps a lot older and you don't have as many responsibilities, and you can actually perform the itikaf. Or the other way around, when a person is so young that they don't have any responsibilities, that they don't need to do the cooking and cleaning, they have parents who will do that for them, so they can actually perform the itikaf. So if you have children and they have finished their studying, and they're not married, they haven't got their own children, perhaps they might not be working at one point, encourage them to do the itikaf, because it is something that, even if it's done once in a lifetime, it is hugely rewarded. So we should try and find these opportunities of when can we do this, and if we can't do this, then is there someone else that can do this, and we can be part of their part of their encouragement to ask them to go ahead and do this, because they have time in their life. They are at that stage where something like this can be done, but perhaps we are not at that stage where we can do that because we've got too many other responsibilities. So being in a state of itikaf means that you are able to dedicate yourself to as much time as possible during the day and the night to perform every deed that you have ever wanted to perform. Doing dua, reading the Quran, sometimes we have duas that we haven't committed to memory, so we can have the dua book with us, listening to Islamic lectures, making our knowledge greater, helping ourselves. and you have the virtue and the reward. It's you will have it's like 1,000 months, and like we discussed earlier, it's 83 years, more than 83 years, 30,000 days. So it's really, it's, you know, you look at it and you think 30,000 days, that's a huge number of days. So more than an entire lifetime for many of us. So most of us probably won't even live that long. And so the worship, if it is accepted on that night, then it is worth the time that we've just said, 83 years, 30,000 days, 1,000 months. So it is that great. And then we have the making up of the fasts. So when do we make up the fasts that we missed out, you know, due to travel or due to our periods or whatever it was? Make them up anytime between the ending of that Ramadan and the beginning of the next Ramadan, and that's, you've got a good 11-12 months to make that up. Now if you make it up, that's it, it's done, good and well. If you can't make it up and you think, okay, I'll make it up after the following Ramadan, then you have to pay a fidya and make them up as well. So you've got two things to do there. So it is quite it is very important that we do make up the fast. And then we always have that question about, oh, what about the Shawwal fast? We were really wanted to fast them, and then someone's told us that, oh, you need to make your ones that you've messed up first before you do the Shawwal fast. Now, the Shawwal fast, you can only fast them in Shawwal, but your own fast that you missed, you've got a whole year to do them. So there's two schools of thought, one saying, no, do yours first, which, you know, there is that thing about, what if you missed 15, 16 fasts? That means that you have to do those first, and then you might not, you know, get all of them in. So the opinion that I follow is that do the Shawwal fasts first, and then make up your own afterwards, because you can make up yours within the next 11 months. So so making up your fasts is a must, and it's better to make it up that year rather than leave it for the following year or the following year or the following year, because then that you will have to pay the fidya as well. Now, moving on to ayah number 188. And eat up not one another's property unjustly in any illegal way, stealing, robbing, deceiving, etc. Nor give bribery to the rulers, that you may knowingly eat up a part of the property of others sinfully. Ibn Abbas says about this ayah that it's about an indebted person when there is no evidence of the loan, so he denies taking it. He denies taking the loan, and the case goes to authorities. Even though he knows that it is not his money, even though he knows that it is not his money and that he is a sinner, consuming what is not allowed for him. So because there's no evidence that someone's loaned him something or someone's given him something, he's like not going to pay that person back. Now, the judge's ruling does not allow the prohibited or prohibit the lawful. So just because someone has taken you to court or you have taken somebody to court, it doesn't mean that whatever the judge's ruled, it's allowed. He can't allow the prohibited, and he cannot prohibit the lawful. It is reported in the two Sahihs that Salama narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, I am only human. You people present your cases to me, and as some of you may be more eloquent and persuasive in presenting his argument, I might issue a judgment in his benefit. So if I give a Muslim's right to another, I am really giving him a piece of fire. So he should not take it. So in this ayah and the ayah and the hadith prove that judgment of the authorities in a case does not change the reality, and it does not change the truth. Hence, the ruling does not allow what is in fact prohibited or prohibit what is in fact allowed. So sometimes people will feel very proud of the fact that they've taken something from someone. Well, we went to court and the court gave it to us. As it explained, the court may have given it to you because all the witnesses stood by you, you were more eloquent in your speech, and the person who the things rightly belong to, they were probably not able to present themselves that clearly. But know that what you have got is a piece of fire for you, because the judge is only human, the people at court are only human. They can only go by what you are presenting, and some people can present better than others. So know that you may have won the case, but you haven't really won the case, because when you stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that whatever you have won is going to be leading you to the fire. So it is only applicable in that case. So if there are rulings agrees with the truth, then there is no harm in the case. Otherwise, the judge will acquire his reward, while the cheater will acquire the evil burden, while you know the falsehood of what you claim. So the judge, he's doing it with the knowledge that he has, with all the information that he has been given. And of course, you know the truth, you know the reality. Qatada said, O son of Adam, know that the judge's ruling does not allow you what is prohibited, or prohibit you from what is allowed. The judge only rules according to his best judgment and according to the testimony of witnesses. So the judge is only human and is bound to make mistakes. Know if the judge rules in someone's favor, then that person will still encounter the dispute when the disputing parties meet on the day of resurrection. So very, sort of like a very eye-opening IOA. You really need to make sure that just because you won through the legal system, but have you really won through, in Allah's eyes? So the unjust person will be just judged swiftly and precisely with that which will surpass whatever he acquired by the judgment that he received in this dunya, in this world. Ayah number 189. They ask you, O Muhammad, about the new moons. Say these are signs to mark fixed periods of time for mankind and for the pilgrims. It is not al-bir that you enter the houses from the back, but al-bir is who fears Allah. So enter houses through their proper doors and fear Allah that you may be successful. And this is because the Arabs, they used to think that if they returned from their Hajj journey, and they would go through the back door, not the front door, because they would think that going through the front door would bring them bad luck. So it's superstition, basically. And in Islam, superstition is not allowed. So what this is, this ayah is teaching us, that is, do things the right way. Don't be superstitious about things. Approach things in the right way. Adopt the correct manner. So the door is how you should be entering a house, not through the back door, not through the window. Al-Hasan said, when some people during the time of Jahiliyyah would leave home to travel and then decide not to travel, they would not enter the house from its door. Rather, they would climb over the back wall. So they would, it's like when somebody goes out and they see a black cat and they think, oh, we can't go because we've just seen a black cat. Or someone sees a ladder and they won't walk underneath it. All these things are from Jahiliyyah. All these things, all these superstitions, they're not from Islam. Islam does not deal with superstitions. Islam just does not believe in superstitions. Everything comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do things in the correct manner. Do not do things, oh, this will happen to you or that will happen to you. It's because in some cultures, if someone's about to leave the house and you sneeze, they say, oh, they can't go now. No, don't leave just yet. Leave after about 10 minutes because they've sneezed and it's public. All these things, they have no standing in Islam. Islam does not believe in these things. Islam is Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained everything. Do not be superstitious. Do not be like the Jahils. Ayah number 190. And fight in the way of Allah those who fight you, but transgress not the limits. Truly Allah likes not the transgressors, and kill them wherever you find them, and turn them out from where they have turned you out. And al-fitna is worse than killing, and fight not with them at al-masjid al-haram, unless they fight you first. But if they attack you, then kill them. Such is the recompense of the disbelievers. But if they cease, then Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful, and fight them until there is no more fitna. And worship is for Allah alone. But if they cease, let there be no transgression except against the zalimun. The sacred month is for the sacred month, and for the prohibited thing there is the law of equality, law of qisas. Then whoever transgresses the prohibitions against you, you transgress likewise against them. And fear Allah, and know that Allah is with the pious. And spend in the cause of Allah, and do not throw yourself into destruction by not spending your wealth in the cause of Allah. And do good. Truly Allah loves the doers of good. So in Islam, we're told again and again that stinginess is something that leads to destruction. And do good. Indeed, Allah loves the doers of good. So if you wish to gain the love of Allah, then do good. Then spend. Spending is doing good. And we saw in the ayahs that we did last week how we were encouraged to spend on the relatives, on the wayfarer, on the orphans, and so on. And now we are told to spend in another way. We are told to spend in the way of Allah, in the way of the deen, and for the advancement of the deen, for the promotion of the deen, for the strength of the deen. And generally when we think of charity, we only think about people in need. We think about people, who are poor. That is fine, we should spend on them as well. But that is not the only way of spending in the way of Allah, or the only way of spending for the pleasure of Allah. We must also think about spending on our masjids. We must also think about spending on our religious institutes, madrasas and masjids and so on. Because if the religious institutes are running, then we will have the deen. Then our deen will be there for people to learn. Then we are safe. Then we will have people who can come and learn, and who can come and teach. And we will always have people learning. And if there are no masajids, if there are no deen institutes, then where will people learn from? How will people know what Islam is? How will we take the Islam to the people who are not yet Muslims? So spending on religious institutions, spending on masjids, spending on madrasas, spending on Islamic schools, that is also a way of earning the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We will stop here because the ayahs from now on start on the subject of Hajj, and inshallah we will cover those next week. Are there any questions? Let's say goodbye to our Facebook friends first.